Good evening, everyone. It's me, back again, ready to discuss another aspect of the constitutional reform process as it takes place, where the JLPNP attempts to turn Jamaica from a constitutional monarchy to a constitutional republic. So, I'm asking you to please like, share, subscribe, spread the word as we get into this little discussion. Now, I have a question. Who is Jamaica's head of state? The Constitution of Jamaica doesn't actually say who is the head of state, but we have two persons who could qualify to be Jamaica's head of state. One is His Majesty the King, and the other is His Excellency the Governor General, which is Jamaica's head of state. So I was watching a YouTube video from an Australian YouTuber by the name of Daisy Cousins. And as I stated before, Australia has a constitution similar to ours. And Daisy, in her breakdown of the coronation, was making reference to the whole idea of the republic debate there. Because as I stated before, Australia has a minister for the republic who is pretty much the same as our legal and constitutional affairs minister. So they have that discussion, although they are not as advanced as Jamaica's government, because unlike us, they already had a referendum back in 1999 and it was rejected. But that's beside the point. The point is, she made the claim that the Governor General is Australia's head of state. And of course, we've been hearing in the media that the Governor General is head of state, but we've also been hearing that the King is head of state. So, which is it? Now, there are two schools of thought on the matter, and I'd like to bring them both out this evening. So, one school of thought, and by the way, this is not just in Jamaica, but in other Commonwealth jurisdictions as well, is that the King occupies the highest position and therefore is the head of state, given that there is no one above him. However, there is another position, which is that because the Governor General does most of the duties of the head of state, then the Governor General is the head of state. And in the discussions, we have to also see where does the other person fit in. So for the school of thought that says the King is the head of state, then the Governor General would serve as the representative of the King. In the school of thought that says the GG is head of state, the King is given the position of sovereign, which of course means that he has a position that is even higher than that of head of state. So it's rather confusing in some cases. The only country that has it clear cut is of course the United Kingdom, where the King is obviously both sovereign and head of state. The Constitution, as I said before, doesn't define it. So in Article 68 of the Constitution, it says that the executive authority is vested in His Majesty the King. However, Article 68(2) states that the authority that is vested in the King is exercised on the King's behalf by the Governor General. So if we have authority vested in one individual but exercised by another individual, then who really is our head of state? Now, with the exception of Papua New Guinea, every other Commonwealth country does not define, Commonwealth realm, does not really state point blank who the head of state is. It is left to implication. In PNG's constitution, it states that the head of state is, well, it was Queen Elizabeth then, it's now King Charles. and that the Governor General would, of course, occupy the position of representative. In the constitutional framework, however, sovereignty is not vested in the crown per se, but sovereignty is actually vested in the people. So, we the people. Well, the Constitution begins with the phrase, we the people, just like as it would in the constitutions of many republics. But interestingly enough, don't let that fool you. PNG is very loyal to the crown. Their government says they're not even having the discussion that we are having right now. So, with that said, who really is the head of state? On one hand, because authority is vested in the king as the highest position, that would in the eyes of some will make him the head of state. However, in the eyes of others, because the GG is the one doing most of the head of state duties, then that makes the GG the head of state. So in terms of my own position on the matter, first of all, let's be absolutely clear. As a monarchist, I firmly believe that sovereignty is vested in the crown. And of course, we saw that in the coronation oath coming out where the king took the oath as sovereign. However, on the other hand, in the way that Jamaica's constitution is set up, we don't necessarily see a lot of references to the monarch. So in chapter 4, it mentions the monarch once, where it says that, the monarch is the person who appoints the governor general. Then in chapter 5, when it talks about, chapter 5 talks about parliament, it says that parliament consists of the monarch, the house, and the senate. And then in a chapter that talks about executive authority, then it says the authority is vested in the monarch. But when it comes to the day-to-day duties of the head of state, most of these are constitutionally vested in the governor general. So it's not as if, okay, then the king has all the power and the governor general just use it. The governor general actually has independent power granted to him by the constitution, which to me would indicate a level of independence for that office. And here's the reason why this is so important. Republicans will tell you that we need a head of state who looks like us, who is born in Jamaica, who knows the Jamaican people, who speaks our language and all of these things. That's what they will tell you. And I like to point out to them that we already have a governor general doing all these things. Oh, another argument they like to use again is that they want, any Jamaican child to be able to aspire to the highest position in the country. But I'm saying the highest position in the country is the GG's position. And there is no barrier for any Jamaican citizen who, wishes to reach that position once they are qualified enough to receive an appointment from His Majesty. And because of that, the whole idea of us needing a head of state who looks like us and who talks like us and who knows us and all these things are already present in the office of the Governor General. Therefore, that Republican argument to me is null and void. As for the position of the king, before I get to the position of the king, then that would then lead to the argument as to why should we continue to be a monarchy if we already have the GG doing all of the heavy lifting of head of state in the first place? Why not just become a republic and call the GG president? Here's the reason why. Because the GG's authority, even though it's exercised by him, is not vested in him. The authority is still of a royal origin. It's still royal authority because sovereignty is still vested in the king. And here's the reason why that's important. I've stated over and over again that the ruling political class, the JLP-NP, wants to gain control of the head of state position for themselves so they can rotate it between them in this new presidency. Under the current constitution that we have now, they cannot do this because the independence of the crown also guarantees the independence of the governor general. And don't be fooled by the smokescreen argument about if we get a president and that will represent the unity of the Jamaican people. The governor general is already doing all of this. And if it is that even if it were to be that the incumbent GG were to be appointed by the first president, because this will not be an elected position, I've said it before, even if they were to be appointed by as president, the source of their authority would be different from what it is now. The source of their authority would not come from a, let's say, a higher person in terms of higher on the hierarchy, but from the two political parties. It's not going to come from the people. Do not be fooled. The people will get no say in the matter. Just as how in Barbados, just as how in Trinidad, the people get no say in who the president is. It is the same thing it will be with us. The source of the authority will be the two political parties with no oversight whatsoever, like it is now, where we have the crown as an overarching institution. So the question then is the king head of state? The answer is yes, because he is the overall, sovereign overall, in terms of the realm, in terms of the state. Is the GG the head of state? Yes, because the king grants him the power to exercise all the duties of the head of state. Now, if it is that we were to change to a republic, then what will happen is that the head of state will no longer be a completely independent and neutral figure. And in a country such as ours, where we are so politically divided on many issues, that is important for us to have that neutral figure. A president cannot do it. Do not be fooled. A ceremonial president cannot do it. And in addition to that, I'm going to say something. My personal belief on the matter is that a ceremonial president doesn't necessarily carry the same level of prestige as a monarchy. An executive president, their source of authority will come mainly from their day-to-day political duties, which therefore means that there's not necessarily a need for that higher level of prestige that comes with a neutral head of state. A neutral head of state is going to need that higher level of prestige to offset the fact that they don't have any day-to-day political power. A ceremonial president is lacking in that simply by virtue of their very office itself. The GG's office, even though it operates in many ways like a ceremonial presidency, because its power is derived from the monarchy, is derived from the crown, from King Charles and previously Queen Elizabeth, then that offsets the whole matter of the prestige of such an office would require. And I believe that is of crucial importance in a politically divided country such as ours. Which is why I say we have a lot of problems in this country. Too many. And one of the problems that we have right now is, of course, what's happening regarding the whole public sector wage matters dispute, all of that, which will be my next topic of discussion, by the way. But the office of the head of state is not one of those problems, which is why I say it is the one thing in this country that we should leave well enough alone on.